Welcome back to DM-Nastics, the gym for dungeon masters to work out their minds. I'm DM Neal, aka Joke Maniac, and with me...
Hi everybody, I'm DM Celeste, and get this guys, I figured it out, my AKA. Are you all ready for it? AKA Celestial Witch!
Yes!
Wow, it's the one! And I'm very excited to say that it's not just the two of us in the gym today. We have somebody very special joining us. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, I am Chris, one of the former hosts of the Dungeon Master Block, coming back after our Storm Giants episode to talk on DM-Nastics. It's going to be awesome. I'm super excited about it.
We're slowly tricking him into coming back.
Aha!
Permanent guest. As long as we call him,
long
as we call him that, then it's like he's hosting. But
Yep.
we can't say host.
Yeah, right. Permanent guest host. What does that all really mean? I mean, just semantics.
But like Chris said, we're going to tie back to episode 173, Raw Real Monsters 11. And we turned it up to 11 for this one. And it is Storm Giants, which featured Chris, which I feel like if you didn't know that by now. But that led to DM-Nastics 142, There's a Storm Brewing. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so on this time, basically we provided a bunch of really cool images of storm-esque giants, and we essentially asked people a bunch of questions to create their own, the backstory of this giant. So our questions: 1, who is this storm giant? 2, where do they live? 3, what legends exist about this giant? 4, what truth is there to these legends? 5, what wild falsehoods are common? And 6, of course, anything else.
AKA, you do you.
You do you, boo.
Yep. so let's jump right to it. Chris, which one did you want to highlight from the forums?
Yeah, so the one that I picked was one by Letter Lost, who is a commoner who only has 6 posts. So shout out to someone who's fairly new at this point as of May 27th when they posted this. I really enjoyed this post by Letter Lost because of a few different things. There was this sort of, what was that movie with the dragons, How to Train Your Dragon,
yeah.
Right? There was sort of that feel to it where at one point there was this giant mountain that this giant is trapped in from what they have written. And it feels very much like it might be that sort of thing that people want to try and conquer because it's causing too much sort of strife for local areas. So that was really interesting for me to kind of give a throwback to like circa 10 years ago for How to Train Your Dragon, and it gave me all of the feels while I was reading it. So that was one of my favorite ones that I read. One of the things under the falsehoods that I really enjoyed was that this giant is supposed to be kind of trapped in this mountain, but it always, as all these lore things typically have it, there's always the like, people want to make these stories a little bit bigger than they typically are. And so one of the falsehoods was that survivors from shipwrecks tell of how lucky they were when a wave swept them away just before the massive hand of the giant and crushed them while they were at sea. So that was a really fun element for me to just be like, yeah, there's this whole lore that can't really be possible, but people always try to make up stories that are bigger than they actually are.
Yeah, like I survived. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That or the fish stories where you see people hold the fish closer to the camera so it looks a whole lot bigger. Those sorts of things are always fun for me to think about when kind of creating lore elements in any sort of game. So well done, Lost Letter. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the name of this thing, Bly Tadui? It's
yeah, I avoided saying it, so I'm really glad that you took the bullet on that.
Tadui, which is a cool name.
Yeah, totally. But I think other people just called him the Northern Sea. This was really cool too. The element of like he might not actually be fully in his body anymore, but that his soul has kind of morphed with this giant storm in the Northern Sea is a really cool kind of idea. Because he is trapped in this mountain, can't get out, so why not just kind of use the storm as a sort of phylactery sort of thing where you sell a piece of your soul to the storm. It's just a really cool, really fun idea to throw in.
Super rad. Absolutely.
Yeah, what about you guys? I would love to hear your ideas that you guys enjoyed from the forums.
Yeah. Neal, do you want to go first?
Done. I chose a post from DM Caleb, who has been around the forums for a while, and they chose the first picture, which is like this very, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of the best word for it, but like more natural looking storm giant kind of walking towards these two adventurers. But like their armor just seems like this hodgepodge of stuff, whereas a lot of the other ones seem really regal, like this fashioned armor that looks more traditional, I guess we'll say. But this one is terrifying, and they called them Ursa Thorn, the Fatebreaker, the Butcher of Angor, the Valley King.
Ooh. Those are some titles.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome name. Like, I mean, I love that you guys are Joe Maniac and Celeste. What was your
Celestial Witch?
Celestial Witch.
Celestial Witch. That guy's got some pretty awesome handles, though. If he were ever to come on the show, kind of blows us all out of the water.
And so they live in a valley with the ruined city of Angor that they are the butcher of, because there was essentially like this worm that was going to be like unearthed or awakened. So rather than let the people do that, they murdered the town. And now they protect that valley from anyone else coming in. But now you have this city of iron and gold that are basically like drawing people to it on a regular basis. So they're just constantly, I assume they're just constantly fighting people. Like that's the only thing I can think.
Fight me! Come to my valley
they would
and
almost
fight
have
me!
to be. Yeah. We saved it from the worm. Hooray! And now we're still fighting.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. And so people assume, the falsehood is that they assume that this giant did this to get that as their own treasure. And that there's the fate that they're trying to like break is their own, but it's not. And then the thing that I really loved from anything else is that they had the move called Fatebreaker. And so as a reaction, you can impose disadvantage on any roll of someone within 30 feet.
Whoa. Yeah. Be like, nope.
But try again. Which, I mean, it could still work, and you just like cannot break, air quote, break fate that way. But you do have a chance to have things go the way you want.
Cool.
As that terrible villain.
Yeah, I would imagine that there has to be like a legendary action to that in some way. Like if it's like use it once around and then do like a recharge, because that's a pretty crazy thing to just do. Like, hey, every turn I'm doing that on somebody. Like, hey, who's the most powerful? All right, little wizard man, you can't do what you wanted to do now. Awesome.
I'm trying to think. Because it's a high enough challenge rating that with Storm Giants you could totally start to have layer actions, because like this is where he lives. So it could be that aspect. Totally. It could be legendary action. Oh, CR14.
Yeah, because technically, I guess Angor would be the lair at that point, right? Like can't leave because everybody's going to steal it. So it's kind of like you're stuck there, like a lair, you know?
Celeste.
Yes. All right. So I chose one from Orochi, who only has 2 posts so far. So welcome as well. This is the day for new folks. And so they took one of the images that is sort of this storm giant that is like standing. It's all done in like grayscale, and you can see they definitely have some kind of undead thing going on here, like this wispy kind of smoke like hair, and it almost looks like their nose is about to fall off from frostbite. So very creepy image here in front of us. And so they named the storm giant Koltikal, which means the first and the last, but in legends they are known as Garlock, which is Oathbreaker. And so what I really liked about this post is the dichotomy of what the truth is and what the legend is very like wildly different. So the legend lore is that this giant basically took all of the treasures that had been like hoarded by other storm giants and kind of stored in this vault. And so they took all of these and they tore up the land itself and created a floating castle that they escaped with all of these treasures like off into the sky, and storm giants are like so mad about it, and like that's why he's Oathbreaker. You know, he betrayed all of these giants. So that's the legend, that somewhere off in the sky there's this floating castle with the wealth of all of these storm giants that's been stolen. But the truth of the legend actually is that this floating castle is sort of a sacred place to storm giants, that when they feel their lives are coming to an end, this is the spot where they go and are actually buried when they die. So it's sort of a closely guarded secret, and they allow it to be wrapped in this like false legend, and it's just such a cool idea that this giant is sitting up there in the sky, like this wise old giant here to facilitate, the ending of these other great beings' lives, and just the idea of also like a floating storm giant castle. Always good. Always a good look. So yeah, I super loved that. Great job. I would love to meet Kudikal in one of my games.
I just love that under number 5, what wild falsehoods are common. Just says the whole legend of Garlic is false.
The whole legend.
The entire thing. Yep. Like whatever you've heard is just probably false. It's not actually that big of a deal.
I love that idea that the giants might be like, oh yeah, that's the legend. Yep. And just let that perpetuate.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah.
I feel like some of the giants don't know that that's true. Like only a certain number, because I mean, to have it spread out, and it's almost the legend that you would tell every storm giant child as they grow up. And then only the ones that need to know, or maybe, you only find out like when you're close to death.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That like, this is what it really is. And this is what's going to happen.
It's almost like your last rites sort of thing. Like, hey, you're about to die. And it could be the whole entire community, if a giant is like incapacitated in some way, work in order to get that. And then what happens if people find out too early about this place because they had to help another giant get there because they couldn't get there? So many layers.
There's definitely a lot of great story hooks there.
And then will they kill your players when they get there? We don't know. Maybe.
I
mean, they are just probably puny mortals at that point that saw the place that they weren't supposed to see. So
yeah. Or they're like, hey, I heard there's a bunch of treasure like on this floating. Let's go. Right. And then it's just like this ancient crypt keeper like sitting there. Oh, man.
So good. Which, I mean, there could totally be tons of treasure because like it all depends on what ritual or rites they feel are last rites. Like they could be just putting all these amazing artifacts with the people that are going there. Mm-hmm. The other thing I thought was like your final battle. Like, are you the one, and you're about to die? Are you the one that can, take back the kingdom? And then you're sent there and you're greeted by, so you're greeted by Kultikal, and then that's when you learn all of these things, and maybe you willingly inter yourself because it's the end.
Yeah, it's interesting, like thinking about, well, what if he actually is the one that has the power to keep the mountain floating, and like your players get there and have to fight him, and then he dies? What happens to the floating mountain and all of these like burial grounds of these storm giants? They just come like crashing down and like.
Yeah. I love this last little sentence too as part of the legend, that he can only die when all other storm giants are dead and there remain safely interred in the great crypt, which is just so like,
yeah.
Wow, the warden of this place waiting for his race to end. Like, wow.
Well, and then does that drive him insane and like turn on all of the storm giants after a while?
Yeah.
Like, because he doesn't want to live anymore?
I'm so tired.
I'm so tired. I've seen everything. People suck.
Yeah.
Let's just do this.
Just crashing it into him.
Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
But on that wonderful note, I say we've done it, which means we're going to lift the mental weights right now.
Lifting weights is what I do. Look at me. Lift these weights.
Okay, so we have decided we will discuss Picture G. Who wants to kind of give a brief description of what we see?
I can give a description of it. All right, so the picture that we have chosen for our own mental gymnastics, lifting our own weights, is Picture G from the forum. So this picture, just for all of you who are listening and not following along in the forums, which you should totally join, by the way, the picture is this kind of desolate swampland. Like I think of in the Mad Max Fury Road movie, where there's like all of that rain going on and the really muddy area. There's this one like just decrepit old shack that's falling apart in the middle of this swampland area. And off in the distance, you can see this giant walking away with a club kind of dragging on the ground. And that's the picture that we have for this mental lifting session.
Done. Perfect. Because I was wondering the same. I was wondering if everyone else, because it's not like super clearly defined, but like I was wondering if you both thought they were walking away, just like I did, which I believe we all thought.
Yeah, it totally looks like they're walking away for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who is this storm giant? Okay. So rather than ask that question, I think I have an answer to a different question. And where do they live? definitively not here.
Mm-hmm.
Like for some reason, and it's that them walking away from the picture that kind of gives me that feel. Like for some reason they have traveled all the way here. Whatever they came to do is done, and now they're ambling home.
Yeah. I get this sense like maybe it's just, the fog and everything and this giant walking way. Like they are looking for something. They're wandering and it wasn't here. Right. And so they're picking because their club is sort of dragging on the ground behind them. And so maybe they're wandering the earth looking for something. I just get a very sad, like lonely vibe.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was feeling when I looked at it. I was like, I kind of want to go here because I'm kind of a sucker for just tragedies like that. Like they came, and I wonder if like the shack has something to do with it. Like inside this shack, maybe it was something from a long time ago that he remembers from when he was a child, or she remembers, like that they were coming back to try and find something that was in that shack. Maybe this is the last standing shack of a once prominent up and coming civilization where there was something held inside of there. He comes back and it's just that there's just nothing there anymore. Kind of this memory from childhood just being smashed to pieces as the shack just sits crumbling in front of this giant. I'd be curious to know what they were trying to find when they came. I don't know if you guys have any ideas for that.
I think, I don't know. Maybe it sounds weird. Who cares? If it's weird, I'll edit it out later. Like, the joy of podcasting. But I think the idea, maybe they started growing up somewhere else. And so like maybe they were trying to find like where they really came from, if you will, because in any society short of giants and short of most of the taller giants, they would just be so completely and utterly out of place as they grew. And so then they probably had to leave for the safety of their family, kind of that concept. But then maybe they wanted to come back and find who actually raised them.
Yeah, I do like that idea. So what it sounds like you're saying, Neal, is that like giants kind of start out, or maybe you're not saying this, but it could be another avenue of it, is that they start out kind of similar size to all other kind of species in this civilization. But as they grew, they wandered and wanted to come back and find some of their old friends or whoever it was that they were growing up with this in the area and couldn't find them anymore. And it's just like this, we had this relationship with these people that now we can't keep going because they've long been dead and this place has been moved on from, and that just kind of sucks, Well,
that was my thought, was the kind of that first realization that they live so much longer than some of the other races, and that disappointment, but maybe finding, and it could be this quest to find the descendants.
Yeah, because maybe they just hadn't become super close with anybody else except for those people, and never really realized because they weren't close with anybody that they lived that much longer than anybody else because they never had any ongoing relationships that they could keep going back to. But those relationships that they had when they were younger are the ones that stuck with them for so long. Yeah. That would be a really sad coming home party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No banners, no cake, no nothing, just decrepit shack.
Okay. So
sad.
Yeah, so then where do they live? Where does this poor wandering giant actually reside now?
Yeah, I think I think after that, they were hoping that because they had wandered so long, that this would be the place that they could kind of come back to and retire, in a sense. And now they just kind of like go away again. Like even more than they were before, they're just more nomadic. They just have nowhere to call home because they were hoping that place would come home.
Yeah. So nowhere left. And what legends exist about this giant? Oh man. I mean, I can definitely see this if this giant is like wandering the world. Like maybe there are just smatterings of tales across, small villages and hamlets that they see this creature that just moves through the mist, like eternally seeking something. Like I can easily, like based on this image, I can see people thinking this is some kind of ghost or maybe spirit that haunts the world looking for a home and not finding one.
Yeah, I like that idea of just this ever-present cloud of fog that's around this giant as they're wandering, just because you might get like a glimpse of it as it moves too quick to one side or something, and all that's left afterwards is like
Footprints.
these massive footprints. Like,
Yeah.
what in the world just came through here? We thought we saw something, right?
Yeah.
Like, but maybe we didn't. Nothing was destroyed in our tiny hamlet. They didn't take any of our sheep. They just something massive walked through. But we have no idea what they were because this massive fog cloud or just fog area just moves through.
Oh, man.
And that would be really creepy too. Just this, especially if you have just fields as far as you can see, but the fog cloud itself is just coming, but it's not wide enough to cover from which angle you can see. But it's just like this isolated fog cloud, like moving towards your little hamlet that's like just freaking everybody out all the time.
I love that idea that only the footprints are like left behind. Oh,
Right. Yeah.
So good. All right. And what's the truth? Truth to these legends.
I feel like that is the truth.
Yeah. I think the legend is probably that it is like a ghost or a specter of some kind.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's actually a storm giant is the truth, like behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea that there's been people that have actually like cut off a piece of leather from like the foot wrappings or something of this creature, and they like try to parade them around, and like it's almost like the truth and a lie. Like people think that they're totally lying about like, hey, we saw this giant, it was freaking nuts, and we cut off this piece of leather for it, and everybody's like, yeah, okay, whatever, Billy. Like there's no way that you got that close to the storm giant, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then what wild falsehoods are common?
I think the fun one would be to have your players come up with what they're searching for.
Yeah.
Because everything is going to be wrong.
Right.
No matter, or whatever crazy ideas you come up with, they're not true, but it would be fun to think of like what your players think they're searching for, because then you can also steal those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the really cooperative part of being a dungeon master, that you can just say, hey, you see this fog cloud coming. You have never actually seen it before, but you've heard stories of a similar fog cloud from your town. What did you hear about this fog cloud or this creature or whatever it is? And you can just have them make up a whole bunch of stuff on the spot and be like, great, that one is the one to go with, because that's way better than anything I would have thought of.
Yeah. The best.
I wonder if I don't know, I just thought of this because people can't really see its shape or its outline, so maybe they think it's like lost a limb or like its head or something, and so this like ghost spirit is eternally wandering the earth looking for its lost head. I love that idea. That's very spooky, and I don't know why I thought of it, but yes. Scary. I'm just scaring myself over here. Don't worry about it.
Or maybe the club is not actually a club, it's a cane, and so you just have one massive foot.
Whoa.
And then it's like using the club to help itself walk along in the fog.
Whoa.
Boom.
All these crazy things.
Okay. Our favorite question. Anything else? AKA, you do you, boo.
Yay! Do we give him a name?
Oh, we did not. Who wants to try and come up with a giant name?
The internet?
Yeah. All right, fantasynamegenerator.com coming around.
Coming up.
What'd you get?
It's coming up right now. There's a lot of long ones, but there's one syllable one called Coam, C-O-A-M, which could be a fun one.
Done.
It's not hard to rattle off the tongue, and people will know the legend of Coam forever.
Well, and I feel like in The Wanderer or something like that, or The Lost, or whatever mix of that your players like or that you like the best.
Yeah, Coam the Ghost, Coam the Wanderer, whatever it could be.
I say we've done it.
We have.
We've lifted the mental weight. But the most important question we have, Chris, where can people go to find you if you want to be found?
Yeah, that's a great question. People can go to Twitter and find me at DM_Chris1, because I say it every time I'm on one of these shows that somebody out there took the one that was just DM_Chris. And they haven't posted in like 8 years. Oh, and I'm not famous enough to get it back from Twitter yet. So, but that's probably the most prominent place that you can find me. I do a lot of lurking these days more than I do posting, but I'm always on there.
Done. And if you want to email us and tell us about how you put Frost Giants in your world, you can always do that at dmnastics@gmail.com. And of course, if you head over to Twitter, you can follow us at DM-Nastics, where you can find my handle and Celeste. And for everything else on the network, you can go to blockpartypodcastnetwork.com. But with that, because Chris is here and he is the voice of our bumper, we have to go to our post-workout cool down and stretch with the light bulb.
Light bulb.
So for today, we have an interesting topic because I think it can go a lot of ways, because you can basically spend little to no money or months worth of salary on dice towers.
Yeah,
No joke.
Seriously.
Yeah. So I guess I'll admit that I own the cheapest version of a Wormwood magnetic dice tower, and that was still not very cheap.
I don't actually own one. I have a buddy of mine, though, who has started coming over and playing games recently. He's one of those people, as pretty much all of us are, that go off the deep end really quickly with Dungeons and Dragons when we get hooked.
Yep.
And he made this whole like box thing that carries all of his stuff inside, but then like opens up to have like sheets on. It almost looks like a music stand sort of thing that he can like write stuff on. And then the thing that's holding it, the music stand part in place, is the dice tower that rolls down into the inside of it. And I'm just like, how come you haven't made me your DM one of those things yet? Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
come on, bro. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, this was always super fun. I used to work in a maker space, and we had a workshop where we'd do CNC like laser cutting to make dice towers, because it is something that, you know, it is just a bunch of puzzle pieces put together at the core of it. So easy in principle to assemble, but they have some beautiful dice towers out there. Like, I'm constantly lusting after the Codex dice tower from Elderwood Academy. They are just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have themed ones. I saw it recently on someone's, like, I think a Kickstarter, where it's a 3D printed tower. Like, you know, it looks like an actual tower, and then the base where it actually rolls out of is like this giant skull.
Wow.
And so, like, you roll it down. So, I don't know.
Yeah, those ones are always cool. There's like ones that are Cthulhu where you put it in the top of the head and it comes out of the mouth and all that stuff too. Like, those are so stinking cool to me. I love the ones too that are like built into the massive Dungeon Master screens that people have, that are like on one of the ends. It's like this castle from the outside that the towers on each side. One is like, has like a place for minis on the inside, and one has a tower on the other side. Like, just if I was so much better at making things, I would totally make that, because it's so cool in my mind.
Well, and I think that's one of the key things I wanted to say as well, is like, if you, because at its essence, the dice tower is built to have things truly be random, because the baffles inside of the tower are to bounce the dice around. You're not going to load the dice. You're not going to roll the right way. It's just going to bounce around and then be as truly random as it can be. You could 100% make a dice tower with some cardboard that you have left over. If you're really
Amazon boxes are great for it.
done.
We all have tons of them.
Yeah. Don't buy anything from Amazon. Just have them ship you a box.
Ship an empty box.
Yep. And in the same way, like, you could get it perfectly themed for exactly which game you're playing. So definitely go out there, see what the wide world of Dice Towers has.
You know what, Neal? Here's an idea for you that you can sell to Amazon. You ready for this?
Done. I'm ready.
You could have them on the inside of each of their boxes, have lines printed that you could cut out and assemble for a Dungeon Master's dice tower. There you go.
Corner that market.
You can sell it.
Yeah.
You can sell it and make a whole bunch of money.
Done.
And do DM-Nastics full time for the rest of your life.
Done.
Yes.
Yes. Because I would get a small percentage of every Amazon box sent. So I think
that's the way you got to do it. That was what happened. That's what went wrong with McDonald's for the original owners.
Yep.
They didn't sign that.
Nope.
I feel like we're going to have a ton of people competing for that idea for Amazon now. Maybe I should have just told you that off air.
Well, I will edit
That's
it
the
out.
true
Got
light
it.
bulb. Whoever can come up with it quickest
You're
wins.
welcome, world.
Done. But with that, we're going to turn out the lights and head out of the gym.
Before we go, I want to implore you, the listeners, to join the forums and take part in these challenges and exercises, as well as other conversations being had.
To do that, you can head over to the dungeonmasterblock.freeforums.net and try some DM-Nastics of your own, so your players don't even have to ask, do you even lift?
Oh, I could barely lift my right arm because I did so many. I don't know if you heard me counting. I did over 1,000. Just watch out for the guns. They'll get you.